first question. In your best 1-minute elevator speech, please introduce yourself and tell us why you would be the best mayor for the city of Seattle and all of its residents.
So I'm Bob Hasegawa, Senator for the 11th District, proud union leader and organizer and proud Bernie delegate to the Democratic National Convention. I feel that I'm the best candidate for mayor for this great city of Seattle because I'm a lifelong resident. I've seen the transformations come through this city. I've felt the pain along with all of you around all of the property tax increases, gentrifying people out of the city. I think that I have the proven track record of actually having managed transformational organizational change in something as great as the Teamsters Union. I was the head of Teamsters Local 174 for many years, where I was responsible for over 1,000 collective bargaining agreements, gathering the top wages and benefits and pension for working families in this city. I'm a true working families advocate. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jenny Durkin, and I'm running for mayor, and I'd love your vote. I was born in Seattle, and I love this city. I've been a Democrat my whole life. I literally doorbelled when I was the age of 4. I was a PC. This is my home district, but I used to live in the 37th. For years, I was a PCO. I'm a lawyer. I'm a mom. I've seen this city transformed, and we are at a crossroads now where we have beautiful new buildings filled with workers, but we have also have the homeless living in the shadows. We have tough problems we have to face as a city, and at this time when we have Trump as our president, the only place the answers are coming from is right here. And if we can't fix it here in Seattle, I don't believe it can be fixed. I think we can tackle the problems of affordable housing, of homelessness, and of wage disparities. And if I'm your mayor, I promise to do that. We're going to tackle the big things, protecting our immigrants and standing up to Trump, but we're also going to take care of basic city services, your potholes, your firemen, your police. Thank you very much.
Good evening, friends of the 46th District. My name is Jessyn Farrell, and I have been proud to represent you for 3 terms in the state legislature. I am running for mayor because the issues that we all care about are in a crisis, whether it is affordability, homelessness, our transportation network. We need to act boldly to make sure that this is a city that every single one of us can live in and stay in. And I'm the candidate in this race who has delivered on transportation and land use and affordability over and over again in my career, whether it's helping pass Sound Transit 2 and Sound Transit 3, whether it's garnering $500 million at the state level for our most at-risk youth, and whether it's pushing innovations in terms of affordability and homelessness and providing services in different ways. I have spent my career working on these issues and delivering results both in the government sector as an elected official and as the executive director of a nonprofit organization. I'm delighted to be here asking for your support. Thank you.
Okay, for our second question, Ms. Durkin will start with that question. In his recent book, The New Urban Crisis, scholar Richard Florida identifies Seattle as one of the world's leading technology and knowledge hubs. But he argues that Seattle, like the other superstar cities, is experiencing a crisis of growing inequality and segregation, rising housing prices, and displacement of the poor as well as the middle class. He makes the case that it is mayors and local officials who must now take the lead on issues of transit, affordable housing, and poverty. How do you plan to lead Seattle through this crisis and ensure a sustainable, livable city that accommodates and values all of its residents?
Thank you very much. It's absolutely true. The answers have to come from the city, and as your mayor, I think I can walk us through these crises. But it only happens if everybody in this room works together and pulls together in this community and every other community. Number one, on affordable housing, we have a start with HALA. We're making sure that every developer has to pay fees so we can have more affordable housing. But we have to remember, affordable housing isn't just, it's a catchphrase. We have to make sure that the people who work here in the jobs, our nurses, our teachers, they can also live here. So we're going to tackle the question of affordable housing. Homelessness is a crisis all of us have to be aware of. We have to address it, and we will not address it unless we deal with addiction and mental health treatment. And as your mayor, we are going to tackle that very tough problem that no one wants to address. Thank you very much.
So cities are like people. They need to be nurtured, they have personalities, and Richard Florida, of course, has had such great ideas and has identified some real challenges that we're facing now. And so there are several things that I think we need to do on the affordability front. And one of the things is that we need housing diversity across the city. And there are a number of ways that we can do that. We can inventory the surplus property that we have, both at the city level, at the various agencies, whether it's WashDOT or Sound Transit. The cost of land is one of the issues that makes affordability so difficult. And we need to keep that public property in public ownership so that we can land bank it and build affordable housing. We can use programs like the $500 million through the Taxpayer Accountability Account that I forced in 2015 to provide those services, those wraparound services, particularly for at-risk youth, so that they have the things that they need. And finally, we need to make sure that we are involving the entire community. We can't take a cookie-cutter approach to growth. Every neighborhood is unique, and we need to cherish that.
So what it boils down to is financing. I'm the only one that's actually proposing to not put financing for these great programs to help maintain our livability on the backs of those who are already being forced out of the city. My proposal is to create a municipally owned public bank, and that can provide the financing for all the good things that we need to do in our city. We're talking about building housing. Well, that's going to cost money. The developers certainly aren't going to put up enough money to house everybody in our city. We have to figure out how to accept the growth that's coming in. So I want to push the decision-making down. We're talking about a structural change in the way government operates. It's not going to be top-down anymore, the way that things have gotten so disconnected from the top to the people. We need to put the people back in charge of the decision-making process. So I want to give more strength to the neighborhoods to figure out how we're going to deal with the growth that is inevitable in our city and the income inequality that we're facing.
Thank you very much. And if I could just remind the audience, if you applaud in the middle, it cuts their time out. So let's not do that. Let's give them all the time that they need. Here's question number 3. And this one, Jessyn, you will start. Thank you. Homelessness is a multifaceted problem with different strategies required for assisting different populations. Please name 3 approaches you would take to housing people and families experiencing homelessness.
Thank you. So one of the things that I believe deeply is that housing is a human right. And I have lived in the North End almost my whole life, and it is shocking to see people sleeping in doorways. It is shocking to be downtown. It is shocking to be in our neighborhoods. I just listed 3 policy ideas that I have. One is surplus property that we already own and land banking it. Another is using $500 million that we had to create wraparound services for at-risk youth and homeless youth. And the third idea is that we need to have a neighborhood-based approach to housing diversity. And I'll elaborate on that third idea a little bit. So again, I believe that we can't let any neighborhood off the hook in terms of helping solve our homeless problem. And we need to reinvigorate our neighborhood councils. The personality of Seattle is based on our neighborhoods. And we can allocate and encourage our neighborhoods to help be part of the solution. Some neighborhoods it may be appropriate to have mother-in-law apartments. Some neighborhoods, it may be appropriate, they may have surplus property, and it might be appropriate to have more traditional public housing. I want feedback from the neighborhoods and input as we combat this issue.
Homelessness is not a monolithic issue. The causes for homelessness differ. And if we don't attack the causes themselves, we will never solve the problem. 3 things we have to do. Number 1, we have one of the highest ratios of moms and kids living in cars. There's groups, public that are in private partnerships that are attacking that problem, but one of the things I'm going to do is an emphasis there. not just to get them homes, but to get those kids in a school that's stable. Data shows that every time a kid changes schools, they set back by months, sometimes years. Homeless kids change schools over and over again, and they're our future. So number one, moms with kids. Number two, and probably the biggest one, treatment, treatment, treatment. If we don't provide better wraparound mental health and drug treatment, we will not solve homelessness for the majority of people living on the streets. It's just a fact. Number three, the navigation center type models where families can live together. People that are living together on the streets have to be able to stay in shelter together. That's important. Thank you.
So the first rule of homelessness is preventing it, and that's keeping people in their homes. I agree with the other two on a lot of the solutions they're proposing. The one thing I have not heard talked about is increasing our public housing supply. If we start building housing as a city, the Hala might be a good start, but to me it just sounds like a deal for the developers because they're not going to set aside nearly enough money, units or money for that matter, to build the amount of housing that we need to make sure that everybody does have housing. We've got 4,000 homeless students in the Seattle School District. 4,000 in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. That's just unconscionable. So we have to make sure that we're addressing this whole issue of income inequality and capturing some of that wealth that's being sucked out of our communities, getting it back into the communities to provide for public housing to make sure that everybody is sheltered.
And for the last question, let me see, it's back to you, Bob. You'll start. The 46th Legislative District includes North Seattle and Lake Forest Park and Kenmore. How can the Seattle mayor best collaborate with its neighbors to tackle regional issues such as housing and transportation, preserving our environment and the opioid epidemic?
Actually, I think it does have to be addressed regionally. I have the same issue in the south end of Seattle because a large part of the 11th district that I represent is outside the city of Seattle. And if everybody's acting in little silos in a disjointed fashion, we're never going to tackle the fundamental problems. We've got to take a regional view, and I believe in systemic views of everything and not breaking things down into silos. Yes, we can deal with homelessness. Yes, we should deal with mental health issues and drug abuse. But they're all part of the larger system and have to be dealt with systemically. And a large part of that comes from the income inequality that we're facing out of there. People feel hopeless in our current circumstances because we're just falling further and further behind. My campaign is about building power for the people again and giving hope that we can take our government back from the corporatists so that we can start making government work for our best interests, not theirs.
I think the key question and the key issue there was neighborhoods. Growing up in Seattle, every neighborhood has its own quality. And if you go around the north end, you notice immediately when you move from one neighborhood to the next. We have to respect the character and quality of the neighborhoods as we solve that problem. But that problem is everybody's responsibility. When you talk about the issues in this question, whether it's opioid problems, homelessness, wealth disparity, each of us has to look in our own neighborhoods and find, how do we do better? How do we make sure that we make room for more density in our neighborhoods? How do we make sure that we support treatment alternatives for those people that need it? How do we make sure that when we vote, our answer isn't always, well, not in our neighborhood, but we will open our neighborhoods. We have been the most generous city, and in this district, we have voted probably off the charts for allowing and taxing ourselves for those things we care about over and over again. We have shown we will help and we can fix it, but we must do it together.
I'm proud to be endorsed by regional leaders from Tacoma to Edmonds to Bellevue to Lake Forest Park and Kenmore. And that's because I know that to get big things done in this region, Seattle has to act in partnership. Oftentimes, Seattle is viewed from the outside as a go-it-alone, place where crazy ideas come to pass, but we all know that part of our role in Seattle is to push the envelope, but what we really do need to do better, and what I will promise to do as mayor, is to spend the time with other regional leaders, whether it's going to Tacoma to meet. That's another joke about Seattle electeds, is that we never leave our city to go do meetings. I will literally go other places to have those meetings. But we really do need to build relationships with other people, other communities, so that we can solve our problems. In standing up to Trump, for example, we cannot be an island. We need to make sure that we're building relationships with other cities who share our values as we are standing up and resisting terrible policies that we don't agree with the federal government. It's a very important issue.
Thank you all very much. So now it's time for the lightning round. So if you'll get your cards ready, and I'll just take that mic maybe too.
No.
Yes, if you would stand. So I'm going to ask you, I think, 10 questions, and just indicate with your card your yes or no answers. Question number 1, do you support the HALA Grand Bargain?
HALA Grand Bargain.
Question number 2, many U.S. cities charge a 5% one-time developer impact fee to pay for infrastructure, so that growth pays for growth. Would you support a 5% developer impact fee for Seattle? Question number 3. Seattle lacks 11,000 block fronts of sidewalks, 2/3 of them north of 85th Street, dating to when the area was annexed in 1954. Are you willing to make accessible, safe sidewalks for all a higher priority?
Really nice.
Question number 4. Would you support a zoning change to allow a limited number of duplexes and triplexes in single-family neighborhoods?
Some waffling going on. Definitely some waffling.
Question number 5. Seattle's tree canopy is quickly shrinking. Would you support restoring a tree canopy goal in the Comprehensive Plan 2035? Question number 6. Do you support an income tax for the city of Seattle as a test case for the state Supreme Court? Question number 7. Would you lobby for changing the state law that prohibits rent stabilization? Question number 8. The North Police Precinct serves 40% of Seattle's population. Do you think the people of Seattle would be better served by 2 smaller precincts instead of the bunker?
That's such a loaded question.
And question number 9. Do you support the current city policy regarding the sweeps of homeless encampments? Okay, and the last one, question number 10. Only Democrats are eligible to be endorsed by the 46th District Democrats. Do you consider yourself a Democrat? Thank you very much indeed. So.